Hey there, I'm Tracy Spears, speaker, author, coach, and founder of Exceptional Leaders Lab, and head cheerleader for anyone wanting to play bigger. Which brings me to this week's guest, Shawn Peters. Shawn is celebrating 20 years as a realtor in the Tulsa real estate market, with the majority of her career spent at Chenoweth and Cohen. Consistently featured in the top 100 realtors by Tulsa People, the top 1% of realtors in Oklahoma, and United States member of Board of Luxury Regents with international recognition. Chenoweth's top Midtown individual producer for the past 10 years. She's focused on building lasting client relationships through personal attention, experience, and execution. I can attest to that. We're going to talk about that. The majority of her business comes from past clients and valued referrals, and I can definitely see why. She's a proud mother of two sons, Drew and Jake. We're going to talk about them a little bit, I hope. Recent graduates of the University of Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner. I love that. Listen, welcome this week's guest, Shawn Peters. Shawn, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I know. I was like, are you nervous? How many podcasts have you done?
I've done none. You are my virgin podcaster. You're my first.
I love that. I love that. This will be so easy. You'll want to do them over and over and over. All right, listen, let's just tell our listeners a little bit about you. So give us where were you born, skip some of the whiny teen years, but kind of give us a sense of you.
Okay, so I'm in Oklahoma, and I was born in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, Big Phillips 66. My parents moved us to Houston when I was little, so I spent most of my time in Houston. Came back here my junior year of high school, crazy, but did, and finished up there and immediately went into the law field. I was doing like paralegal work, legal assistant work, and then real estate called my name, and that's been my history. I love it.
Wow. What made you come back to Oklahoma at a junior? What happened?
Well, bad choice for my parents. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's a good choice.
Dad decided to buy a business in Tulsa, so we came back. Originally they were from Bartlesville, so it seemed like a likely choice. And actually, it's been great. I mean, I love it. So.
Did you love living in Houston?
I did like living in Houston. I mean, yeah, my parents, they first moved closer to Houston because that was, early 70s, and then started moving north as it got really crowded. So I guess they went as north as the Woodlands and decided, okay, now it's time to come to Tulsa. But I didn't mind it. I mean, I had great friends there and good schools, and we went to the beach a lot. So it was fun.
We have a lot of people in Houston that listen to this podcast. So for my Houston friends, I wasn't hating on Houston. I was just thinking of one thing only, and it's the traffic.
That's what did it for us. It was just my dad would take, an hour, then would be an hour and a half to come home from work. And he felt like he was spending all his time in traffic, and it just not for him. So
you're in the legal field. Are you at that point? So you end up in real estate. Give us as you know, the name of this is Shift Out Loud. So I'm going to try to always plug where you shifted, and the definition of a shift out loud is you made some choice or some change in your life that shifted your trajectory or your path. So how do you go from in the law field to real estate?
Well, probably in the law field, I met my husband, Drew and Jake's dad. And so we got married, and I became a housewife. That didn't last very long. He could tell I was bored. I needed to do some other things too. So Steve was a owner at the consortium at 35th and Peoria. They needed someone to kind of property management it. And he said, I think Shawn would be good. So I went down there, started making a connection with some of the tenants, loved it. I have to credit Roger Urker was one of our tenants with back in Urker and Company, and then he became McGraw. But I would tag along with him to look at real estate. And so one day he just said, I think you should do this. I think you would like it. And I really did like it. So I went to school, did my test, and the rest is history.
Wow. So are you that person that everybody that knows you was saying before that you should be in real estate, or was that kind of an epiphany for you when you started getting into the real estate business?
I think what drew me to it is, and Roger, I credit Roger with it again. I mean, we would drive around and I'd see these houses in Utica Square and he'd tell me the history, and I just loved the way they looked. And it just came naturally. I mean, I would look at a house and I could see a space needed to be this, or this flowed, or this didn't flow. And I mean, that part I just haven't struggled with. So I think there was always a really connection with it, and it was very apparent.
Nice. So you don't come from a long line of real estate agents or anything then.
I don't. I don't. I mean, I will have to say that my mom always says that when I was like 4 or 5, I would walk in a house and go, "Oh no, I don't like this. Closet isn't big enough." So whether or not that's true, I don't remember that, but she says that. So maybe there was something a long time ago calling.
Listen, I know your mom. I believe it. I think you keep telling for sure. And just for the listeners, I have benefited greatly from your real estate expertise over the last year in particular. So, and I want to talk a little bit about that, but I want to kind of just, for people was thinking about interviewing with you for this podcast. There were a couple of things. One is I wanted everybody to know you better for sure. The other thing I want this to also be an opportunity to educate people about the do's and don'ts of buying a house and, what to look for in real estate agents and all the things. So I'm going to pick your brain on that as well. So I'm going to start with just you though. Like you're 20 years into this industry and you look back on Shawn 1.0 real estate agent, and now we're Shawn 4.0, let's say. What has been the biggest change that you've seen in the real estate market first? And then I'll come back and ask you about you. So what's the biggest difference in just the market in general?
Well, the market in general, I mean, if we go back historically, 2008 obviously changed a lot of things in our industry. Then everybody kind of grinded and worked to recoup after that. And then everybody's rocking along. And then you get COVID, and then who would have thought that would make, house prices go crazy up, interest rates go crazy low. And I will say that right now we're back at a really good plateau. I think it's going to change to even get a little bit better, but I just want everyone to feel that we have a confidence in Tulsa. I mean, we've always had a confidence in Tulsa, but Tulsa market is still very strong and very good for people. It's a very good investment.
I think so too. I stand on stages everywhere and people always go, Tulsa, Oklahoma, why do you still live there? And part of me, wants to say, oh, you wouldn't like it because I don't want it, to be kind of a huge thing.
No,
I don't want all that traffic, but you're right. It's a lifestyle. Like I literally, and I've said this probably on half of the podcast, somehow it always comes up. I can get in the car and be at my gate on the plane in 15 minutes. So it's like crazy. So, okay. So we move on and ask you this. So you have obviously a lot of people that you're working with. You bring them into a home. I'm wondering, what do real estate agents talk about when they talk about the people that they're showing homes to? Like, do you have and I've never asked you this, are there names for certain types of customers or clients or, I don't know. So give me some some insider information.
Oh, interesting. Let's see. Well, I mean, if I understand the question correctly, I mean, when we're taking someone in the house, my main priority is I'm trying to show you what's available with what you can afford. I want someone to have a wow factor. I don't want them to feel like they're settling for something. So, I always say get comfortable in the market. I mean, if I have to show you 10 to get you comfortable, I want to do that, so that when you decide on the one, that it's the one best suited for you. So, I'm kind of speaking to you directly. You found the one you liked, but then when you did, you knew it. So that's what we're looking for.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this is a self-serving question because I would think I was that client that you were like, oh my God, I wish she'd find a house. And so then I wonder what they're calling me in the office.
Not at all. I think what it allowed me to know is because we went several different avenues, that when you landed on the one that I knew was meant for you, I felt good about it. I felt you weren't jumping at the first one or the second one. You knew what you wanted. Took us a little bit time to identify it, but that's the purpose of looking at it, because every time we would have a great conversation, that I would learn something else about why you wanted a particular house. And that's I think sometimes agents are so rushed to get that sale that they don't take the time to get to know their client. And I feel better about my job at the end of the day if I've connected you with something you really like and you can build with versus I got to sell. That's not rewarding to me.
Well, I have to say thank you here. And I want to let the listeners know what you're not saying. I actually signed and backed out of 2 contracts. The house I just bought, it was the 3rd one. And I just, there's that ego part of me that was like, oh, I don't want her to think I'm flaky, but I'm going to back out again. And for a good reason. I didn't just back out. There were a couple of things happening with both of those first 2 houses. Yet, what I appreciated about you is I never once thought you were upset with me or that I was wasting your time. You might have been saying that outside of my company,
Yeah.
but you never made me feel like, God, I can't believe she's, backing out of that or whatever. So it's just my opportunity to say thank you, because that is a big decision. And do you think most people make that decision emotionally in the moment? Do you think, like, what is your experience? Do you think that you're either emotional or totally logical, or do you think like that, most people come with both sides of their brain? What's your experience?
That's interesting. You said both sides of the brain, because there is some of that. I've had buyers that buy and they like something and then they know it. And then when it comes to selling their house, then it's a completely different playing field. So it's very interesting that you almost need psychology 101 to do this business, but that comes down to, it is very emotional because your home is your haven.
That's right.
So for most people that look at their life that way, it's emotional. And that's why you learn to be patient, to offer guidance, and really try to get to know them so you feel good that you've gotten them the right house.
What would you want your buyers to do differently or to do? Like, what would be some do's and don'ts? Like, what would make somebody the perfect client to work with as the real estate agent? What do you wish we would do more of or less of?
I probably wish people would, I can't believe I'm saying this, but stay off the internet, just from the fact that everybody has an opinion about what house values are. And interestingly enough, people are always looking to this company that is not based out of Oklahoma. I won't say their name, but is telling them what their house is worth, what the house they're looking at's worth. And when you're not in a cookie cutter neighborhood, those estimates, guesstimates do not work. They're oftentimes inaccurate. So the value of a realtor is someone who knows that area, can give you the history, can give you, predictions of what's going to happen in the future. But takes the time to know the house that sold 3 doors down. Does that have the same interior features that you're looking at? But it's just not as cut and dry as internet would make you want to think. So there's a value to a realtor knowing their area.
For sure. My business partner, Wally, and I had this big conversation about, he just bought a house. He lives in Norfolk, Virginia. And he said, did you make your list? And I said, what? And he's like, the list of all the things that you want in the house. And I go, yeah, I kind of have it in my head. He's like, no, you got to make a list, because if you don't have the list, you're going to get emotional and you're going to make a decision. And I was like, I don't need a list. And we had this big debate, and I'm now thinking he's probably right, because I got about half the things on my list if I would have taken the time to write it down. But he said, we looked at 36 places, and he said it was the 36th one that had everything on the list. He said, that's how I knew it was a house. So my question to you is, I was like, did he miss some opportunities in that? Or, I don't know.
I think obviously he's more organized. Put it down. And I do think that people I think it's a really good recommendation, because I think people can start going into different houses, and particularly, again, if they're not the cookie cutter, you're going in a neighborhood where everybody's built the same, you can get wowed into one direction and forget maybe some things that were important to you.
Right.
You might love that primary bedroom, and then all of a sudden it has a crappy backyard, and then you don't get a great outdoor area where that's where you spend most of your time. So I think you can forget what's important to you. And I do think making a list is great advice, actually.
Okay. Is it the proverbial location, location, location? Is that really what people should be thinking about first?
Well, I think a location, location, location is probably overused. I mean, I think you need to think about, where do I like to spend my time? What do I like to do? Is this convenient to those things? And then you want to identify, is this a neighborhood that continues to grow in value? And if it does, then I want to be here. I don't ever want a buyer to come back to me and go, "Oh, Shawn, you let me overpay. This neighborhood's going down in value." Or, you want to think about the future too. So there's all kinds of things that factor into where you're going to be. And so I think, yes, everybody always says location, 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 but it's things about that location,
Got you. Yeah,
like value and everything.
that's fair. Well, let's go back to you and your shift. And thank you for the real estate market overview. I appreciate it and all the things. But I really feel, I mean, that's not true. Most people have either bought a house or will buy a house. I know generationally we're now hearing that that's going to shift in the future. And you and I will talk about that at the end. But for you, as you look back on some of the shifts that you experienced, which ones you start, which one you want to talk about? So you shifted, you moved from Bartlesville to Houston, and then you end up moving back. Was there anything in that time frame, or kind of what comes to mind?
I candidly, Tracy, I think about like so many different shifts in 20s and 30s that some of them I can't even remember. I mean, I feel like life just kind of did that back then. You're trying to figure out who you're going to be and what you're going to do. I think the biggest shift I made, the best shift I made obviously was to motherhood. I mean, that's the first shift. I mean, that sounds kind of trite, but that was the best thing in my life, the best reward. And then the next shift I probably made was, 2008, doing real estate. It was tough. And I think when we came out of 2008 and the market got stabilized and things were happening, I was grinding. I was working so hard because I'm an achiever. So I was throwing everything. I was doing real estate 24 hours a day and probably neglecting things in my life. So I think what happened, the best shift that happened recently to me was, like in 2016, I lost a friend, and very suddenly, and it was very impactful on my life. And I thought, man, I'm not balancing. I hadn't spent time with her in the last couple of months, even though we were great friends. And I think it was a wake-up call to me that, what if something happened to me suddenly? I'm going out with non-balance in my life. I'm not really that satisfied. So I started taking some time and thinking, okay, I'm going to balance. I'm not going to be that realtor that's working 80 hours a week. I want to make time for for work, of course, still, my family, my friends, and secondly, me. Or more importantly, me. I realized at that same point in time that I hadn't picked up a book in probably 3 months, which is huge for me because I love to read. I just was so tired at the end of the day. I was just going to sleep and waking up and going through the motions. So I really made a concerted effort to say, I'm going to balance. I'm going to be selective in what real estate I'm doing. I'm going to be selective in my time with my family, making time for myself. And I started implementing that. And what happened was, and not overnight, all of a sudden, everything came into place. I was happy. I was calm. I was even more successful than the time before that. And I think because I was just so much more connected to everything in my life and balanced it out, that it just became really nice. And I was enjoying life and enjoying my family and my friends more. And it really was the best shift I could have made.
Wow. There's people listening, me included, that are listening to this thinking, I need that shift, or wow, that sounds like something I need to be paying attention to. What was your process in that? As you look back on that, Was it, and let's talk, I'm process oriented, as you do know, a bit, although you might not have experienced that of me. But anyway, like, was there, you remember that happening? Did you sit down and write out some of those things? You said some very casual things. I made decisions about what kind of real estate agent I wanted to be, or the people I wanted to work with, or do you just look back at that and go, I just was willing to be open to new ways of moving about the world? Which one was it?
Well, I really wanted to, to take some time to myself and say, okay, what's the most important thing to me? How much time do I want to allot to it? I'll never forget, I was sitting in a class called Thrive, and we were supposed to write down, how much time do you spend doing real estate? And this was about 6 months after I tried to start really kind of balancing. And I sat and I thought, okay, my goal right now is to shift to about 80% of what I was doing, which I felt like was 24 hours a day, candidly. And so I wrote that down. And then, you do the little formula. Okay, well, this is what I want to make a year. And, and then everybody starts looking at it. And somebody said, oh, well, gosh, if you work 20 more hours a week, you'd make even this much. And I said, you know what? I don't want. I'm super happy with what I have. And my value of that 20% more is going now to my family and my friends and me. And that was, super important, because I remember the younger people were looking at me with their big eyes going, I can't believe she's saying that. But it helped me a lot. And so I just made a concerted effort, went to the bookstore, picked up 3 books. And my goal was, okay, this month, I'm going to start these books. I might not finish the 3 in this month, but that's going to be important to me. I planned a trip to the BVI. I'd never been there before, but I was like, you know what? I want to start my traveling now. And I did that. And that was super rewarding. I spent time with my family, more importantly, too. I'd always done that with my kids. My kids are really probably the exception to when I say spending time. They have always been top priority forever. But just simple relationships of, family, friends, making the time to get together, be connected with them, not just know I had friends, but really know what's going on with my friends and family. What are they going through? Because sometimes when you're too busy, they don't approach you about things. So I wanted to approach them and say, what have I missed? What have I missed in the last 4 years that I've been working my tail off? So that was good. And then with work, I just decided that I was going to be selective with my clients and with my listings. And I was going to be totally present in the ones I picked and had. And then I just got to a point where I said, you know what? If I don't feel like I enjoy someone or can help them, I'm going to pass them on to someone. And I've had the luxury of referrals my whole career. So I've never been that person that was going out, oh, I've got to, do this or do this or do that to get business. I really did the referrals, but I tried to prioritize the referrals and the people I were working with. And as a result, I enjoyed them a lot more. I enjoyed my job. I didn't feel as frustrated at the end of the day. And I think that took about probably 9 months to really feel like, okay, I am making headway. Because I remember I woke up one day and I just felt like, gosh, I can have my coffee at 5:30, read for a couple hours, then I'm going to take some time to do some things around the house, which are chores, and then go do my job. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to spend some time with a friend or my family. And all of a sudden I woke up one day and was like, I really have a good life. I like it.
And that's the thing, that you don't notice that in a day or two. It takes some time. Like you have to, you can only experience that in the rearview mirror, right? You look back and go, hey, wait a minute, I'm here, but I didn't just get here because I made a couple of decisions and now I feel that it's worth it. So I think I love that you're explaining that in that way, that there was some time that passed before you went, oh, wow, wait a minute, now it is working. And now let's just talk about where you are now. So that shift to, kind of slow things down, go deeper instead of wider. I think that's a huge shift for all of us to consider. What's that look like for you now?
Well, interestingly enough, I just came off taking my dad on an Alaskan cruise for his 80th birthday. It was a wish. My sister and I took him, and it was so great. And, it's really empowering to be on it. And, that it was almost like circle of life. I'm taking my dad on a great trip that he always did for us. And then we start reminiscing and talking. And all of a sudden I was watching him light up when he was talking about things in our past and everything that, we've done together. And I started thinking, man, he is really savoring this moment. I mean, it was just, we enjoyed every day, the talking, the laughter, even some really emotional moments. And I really came back from that trip, and I mean, I'm not afraid to say I'm approaching 60. And I was thinking my next shift is probably going to be about savoring, Tracy. I mean, I just want to take those experiences and spend more time with them and be more present in that moment. And I really think, and I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like, but I do know that's going to be kind of my goal, to be savoring by the time I get 60 and make some changes that way.
What do you think gets changed? Do you think it is people? Do you think it's activities? Do you think it's what's going to make that change, if you know?
It's kind of, in a way, it's kind of emotional. I mean, I think it's, watching my dad, I think part of it was processing how quickly time goes. I think it's processing how someone 80 can be lit up talking about some of the great things that were happening in the, 20s and 30s and 40s and life. And I just thought, if I don't take the time right now to really savor what I'm doing, that's really going to enhance those memories I have and everything that I'm doing in the next. So I see it as continuing on the path. I mean, I feel like my work is really balanced right now. I will say, I think there's a shift I can make that I'm letting loose of the reins a little bit. I think you and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I think it's planning and not just saying, okay, I want to go there next year. I want to go there in 2 years, or maybe I want to do there at 5. I'm going to start truly booking something I want to do and just saying, I'm not going to wait for my business to allow me to go there, because in this business, I'll never get to go there. I mean, I'm always, busy, but I'm going to book those trips, and I'm going to reach out to those people I want to spend time with and make them do the same. Let's do this together. Let's go enjoy this while we can. And I think it's also going to be a lot more quiet time. I mean, as you know, the cabin was a shift in my balance that made me realize I can be away and be away from my office for the weekend. I just think the whole environment gave me a tranquility that I didn't realize I was missing till I got there.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you. I when I first bought the cabin out there, it was 20 years ago. Next month will be 20 years. And I have said many times it saved my life, because I was not able to, I didn't know how to unplug. I couldn't even unplug just going home because of all the chores and all the things. And I get out there and it is truly unplugging. And when you and Randy bought out there, I remember you moving in, and I would, drive by on the weekends, and you were there every weekend. And sometimes people buy out there and then we see them for a little bit and then we never see them again. You all were there, and then you bought like a bigger one, and then like you're there every weekend. So like you truly embraced that separation. I know it's part of it's because you have an amazing place and all the things, but it's part of that because it does force you to create that balance that you were seeking.
It really did. I mean, I don't think I realized how much I was starving just the serenity. I mean, we would be at that time in Tulsa, and you'd be like, okay, we need to do this event, or we need to do that, or we need to be here for dinner. We need to do that. That was all great, but there wasn't that serenity, or that calmness. I mean, we go to the cabin, and I'm jokingly, you never even, I mean, I can see someone or I don't have to see anybody. I mean, it's just that peaceful feeling. You drive over that crystal clear creek and my shoulders just relax, I don't look at my phone. I mean, if I'm in Tulsa, my phone's pretty close by me, but I literally at the cabin, it's on the charger. I go off and walk. I go off and read. I check it, every 3 or 4 hours. I mean, it just instills that in you that you can relax.
That's right. That's right. I love that. I want to go back to your dad for a minute. So he's reflecting on his life. You all are on this Alaskan cruise. Did he tell you things that you had never heard before in that environment? Or was it just kind of retelling the stories that you have heard before?
You know what? Some of it was a little bit of both. I mean, obviously reminiscing, that was great. I mean, our dad, I say I had the best dad ever. I mean, I don't know that there's a better dad other than my kid's dad. I mean, really, my dad was so present with us, and great, but he was really a quiet soul. And so it was neat to have him uninterrupted for 8 days that we could just sit and talk because my dad lives in Norman and I talk to him 2 or 3 times a week, but it's not these extended, open conversations. So it was really neat he was a businessman. He would travel. He built, and I didn't really understand how it came about when I was a kid, but basically someone that was very important in Mexico City had come to do some business with my dad. My dad distributed all kinds of tools and oil-filled parts and things like that. And he had come to my dad and they were doing a business deal. And in a side conversation, he said, we really need some help building trade schools in Mexico City. And so I knew that when we were a kid, we traveled a lot to Mexico City or we would go to Acapulco, but it was because my dad was helping Mexico City build these trade schools for kids. So I had never known that really, or maybe didn't take the time to hear that story again as an adult from my dad. And my dad's not a brat. He's a very quiet man. And so there were so many things that maybe he expanded on that I didn't know. And that's part of what I'm talking about savoring is, getting deeper with somebody, knowing more about him. I mean, I think in the short time you and I have known each other, we're already kind of doing that at the cabin. I mean, our conversation, I can just say I've never done a podcast. Probably the reason I did is because I'm so comfortable talking to you. I mean, I love our conversations at the cabin and getting to know each other.
Likewise. Thank you for that. When you mentioned a bit ago the decision that you are making to be more intentional about going on vacations, and I think that's the difference, right? I think that everybody talks about what they want to do and we should do and all that. But you and I have friends, Rita and Kevin, who, as you know, just went with me to, I spoke in Switzerland last week, and literally a week before, we're talking, you should go. And they're like, we should go. We're going to go. And within a week, plane tickets are booked and they are on their way. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because they made a decision 2 years ago. They would probably say longer ago than that. This just was my awareness that they were going to be more intentional about the travel and the things. So when you say right now, I'm not just going to say I want to do it. I'm going to get it on the calendar and book it. And they're very, very good about that. So I'm learning from them. And yet they're also open to any kind of experience that comes their way. So oh yeah, no, we'll go there. Oh yeah.
I love spontaneity. I'm there. I mean, I'm an easy traveler. And so I just feel like I'm just going to do it. If he asks me to do something, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to spontaneously say, hey, let's go do that.
Yeah. Most people are wired though to, no, I probably better not, or no, or I'm not sure. I don't know. I have always paid for experiences. I'm happy to pay for an amazing experience. What are you the most extravagant about? That's a question I'll ask you. I'll answer it and give you a second to think. For me, I love an amazing hotel. That would be I don't know, that would be my thing. What about you? What would be your...
You are so funny. My boys call me the hotel snob. Loving. I mean, they knew if they're going on a trip with mom, it's going to be a great hotel. I mean, we joke. Drew is very comfortable in a white robe. Where's the white robe, Mom?
That's how you know, right? That's how you know.
Yeah. But, I think one of the most extravagant trip probably I've taken was the first time I went to BVI, and I'd kind of planned it a little bit and asked around, and somebody had told me about a private island. And I thought, wow, that sounds cool, But I went, and it was when I got past the realization that you are not going to be connected in any way. There's no cell phone, no anything. It was pretty amazing. And I have to say that because I don't take those that often, I'm not afraid to, I'm going to pay for the experience. I don't want to go and, be on a hard mattress. I don't want to go and the food tastes like it was microwaved. I mean, I go, I'm going to relish it for sure.
I love that. I love that. Well, I'm cheering everybody that's listening in on this today to think about, saying yes to those opportunities, because as we all know, everybody, you said that the shift happened because you lost a good friend, which I'm sorry to hear that. But we've all had that experience where the wake up call is not a good one. It's not, hey, wait a minute, I'm just going to change my mind and be more intentional. And I have always said, I'm going to go do all of the traveling now and then sit still in retirement. So I've always been the opposite of and I think it's because I have lost people. And, I had a client one time that, he was a hospital administrator, and he was, about to retire. And he bought like one of those giant travel homes, motorhomes. And, like the 6-month countdown was on, and he like went somewhere for the weekend to just test it out. And he's like, oh my gosh, my wife and I are going to, and literally 2 weeks later, he drops dead of a heart attack. And I remember like he never, other than the test run, he never did the vacation, but he and I had many conversations about, I probably shouldn't have waited so long, but I'm excited for the next chapter. But that stuck with me. I was a young person when that happened, and I was a younger person, let's say that. And I remember thinking, I'm not gonna do that. And I watched my parents. My parents never travel. My mother wanted to desperately, and the few times that she went were the happiest I've ever seen her. But I think most people aren't taking the time. So there's our big commercial. Shawn and I are going to be going places.
Going.
I love that. So can we talk about Drew for a moment? Because I'm crazy about him, first of all. And so I'm going to let you talk about him. I'll talk about how amazing he is, but you talk about him first. How does he end up in this conversation other than being, one of the two loves of your life, your two children? So let's talk about both of your children.
So Drew is doing real estate with me, so it's kind of great. So get back to that. Is he graduated from OU with a political science degree, and he said, "Mom, I don't want to be an attorney like my dad. What do I do? Political science." And I said, "Well, and it goes back to that shift about savoring. At the same time, I am selective and busy, but still, as you're happy and engaged, your business grows." And so I thought, there's no better person to pass this on to than Drew. And I mean, he's got a great personality. He's very smart. He's good with clients. Would you be interested in doing it? I mean, I didn't assume he did. And he said, I think I might like to do that. And I said, well, here's the deal. Let's do it. If you like it, great. If you don't, won't hurt my feelings. And I mean, Tracy, he just took to it like a fish in water. I mean, he's wonderful. And as a result, now I feel even more comfortable leaving. I mean, when I went to Alaska, his whole goal was, I don't want to call my mom while she's gone on vacation. So he did a great job. But, he's being able to help people his age be first-time homeowners, or he's helping with bigger deals that we do. I mean, he's very well versed very quickly, and I'm very proud of him.
So I'll tell you a funny joke. It's not a joke. I didn't do it, but I almost called him, because I knew he wouldn't have been surprised, but I almost called him and said, this is the worst house. I need out of this deal. Can't get a hold of your mom. Like I really thought about playing a giant joke on him, but I like him too much to put him through that kind of stress. But I think he would have, I'm sure he would have handled it perfectly, but it would have been for my pleasure only. But how long has he been with you? How long is he?
He's done it. He is going, let's see, I can't believe this, but September 1 will be 2 years. So Yeah, so he's doing really well.
Yeah. Well, the first time I met him and he had his clipboard and he was, you all work very well together. Um, so, I'll say, when I first met him and I was like, okay, well, but then I was like, oh no, he crushed this on his own. Like, so I think he's definitely got the chops for it.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Good. And I am following him on Facebook now where he's, making his sales and all that stuff. So shout out to Drew
Used
Peters.
to that. It's kind of interesting. His age group is not quite into like Facebook like we are, but he's done a good job with the social, networking of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking about all of his friends are probably yet to buy a house or like, so he's got a good on-ramp to this, it seems like, with just his immediate network.
That's exactly what he's doing right now. In fact, he's out showing to someone who's making the decision to go from renting to buying the first home. So
Nice. And tell us about your other son.
So my other son, Jake, he just graduated from OU last December with a finance degree. He was bent on going to be in Dallas. He wanted to be in Dallas. That's all he wanted to be. So he did take a job in Dallas. He's living there. He's doing great. He does some traveling. He came in last Friday because he's actually on a fly fishing trip in Montana with his dad. And we were both commenting on, he's been in Dallas now for about a quarter. And he is just walking with that, confident step, smiling. So I can just tell he's genuinely happy. And man, that makes me happy. So
What do they say? You're as happy as your saddest kid or something? I can't remember
yeah.
whatever that is. So last thing, Shawn, how can people find you if somebody is wanting to buy, even if they're in Houston or they're one of our international friends, they want to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma. How can they find you?
Super easy. Shawn Peters, Chenoweth and Cohen Realtors, Tulsa. I pop up immediately, and I will get back to you as soon as I can.
Or text me if you have my cell phone, and I'll send you her information. So, all right. With that, I love you. I appreciate you. And I have a lot of amazing realtor friends, so shout out to all of them as well. What you all do is not easy, but just a huge thank you for how you have navigated. I've had a rough time the last year, and you've been such a great business partner in the house thing, but you become a dear friend, and I appreciate you. So,
well, everybody knows 4 to 10 realtors, and I tell you, I was really honored when you called me, and I appreciate your business, but more importantly, the friendship. I mean, it's really been a nice journey.
Likewise. Continued success, my friend.
Absolutely.